Here's the A mill. It was built in 1896, and steam ran this whole place. And there's a smokestack that just the tree swallows nest in now. But and over to the right of that tree, we had an office building that the office people worked in, and they also took the samples over there to sample for all of the flour that was being processed. And in the early days, long before me, they baked the flour to see how it would turn out. What we're going to start with is that we know that the farmers planted the wheat and they harvested it and it came here, and it got probed for protein and bugs and whatever to see if it's suitable for our mill, and it got dumped here, and it got sent to a certain bin depending on what protein was there.
Correct. And as it comes in, it gets cleaned through the elevator and then binned off through all the cement bins that are here, and then it heads to the mill.
So when they needed a certain type of flour with a certain type of protein, they would draw from those bins. And
Pretty much it?
Yep, it started, and probably it got piped right up to the 5th floor, and that was the starting point. And
Yeah.
the bran, the hull, would be blown off and get sent to the feed station, and the wheat germ got jerked out of there somehow. I don't know the process exactly, do you? But
It's all through the sifters.
yeah, the sifters, and then the wheat went through the rollers to roll it to the consistency of what they needed the flour. If it was a whole wheat flour, it didn't get ground that much, and if it was something different, it got ground more. Went through a lot of different rolls.
Yep, to make the different grades.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the wheat was dumped from the rail cars or the trucks, and it got into the bins now, and from the bins it's going to be able to be transported by
Conveyor belt to the drag conveyor going to the A mill or to the B mill. There's two sets of different conveyors, one on each side. So there's a combination of star bins and regular silo bins, and they all dump into these two belts and then get transferred to the mills wherever they needed to go. So this is the first leg that brings the wheat into the mill. It'll take it into this separator and split it into 4 streams to send it down to the distoners down below, which took out all the soybeans, the chaff, the dust, anything that was left in the wheat. Then it would go down through another process, through another cleaner and another set of screens to get all the impurities out of it. Splitter up above brought it into 4 different streams, and then it ran it through, and this whole machine just sits there and shakes. Splitter up above. Okay, these are sifters, and there's 4 of them in a rack driven by an eccentric motor, all hanging on these reeds. And what the sieves that are inside do is they divide the product out as they get different consistencies, and they'll come out in different places to go to the other rolls. Just like in the B mill, separating your product out through the sieves and getting it to your different products you want to grind up more or what you want to do. And then through the different elevator legs, you can see what's going up from all of them. From farina, germ, animal feed, you name it. It all has to go back through the rolls to be ground up again. Just like these are wooden bucket elevators. They have a series of buckets on them like this on a belt. And they go around, they'll go down here, pick up, and take everything up to the 5th floor to go through the sifters. Similar to the B mill where we use suction or blowing. But they go all the way from wheat to the different products going up. So when they break, it wasn't so fun because you had to pull that belt back up and around. This table was used for checking their process, how they're doing on their flour, and they put a series of different screen mesh into the test sifter, and then they'd run their sample through it and bring it out, And then each screen, they could see how their process are doing, if they needed to tweak anything, or how things are looking all together. That was all done here. They'd have a real accurate scale for measuring what's on each screen. Then they could go down and tweak the rolls if they had to get the proper grind. This table was, this is floor 2 of the old A mill. These are all the grinding machines. This whole floor, that's all this floor did, was grinding machines. So your product would come in through these pipes. It'd be dispersed by this roller to spread it out. So your main rollers that are turning together with corrugation on them can grind up that particular product.
And that's the wheat that's being ground?
It's wheat, it's the flour, it's the bran, it's whatever process it's at.
Okay.
So your product, in the background, there's 2 bends that are made up of 2x6s that are laid flat together that the tempered wheat would go into. And they go from 5th floor down to the 3rd floor, or down to the 1st floor, and then come back up and get ground up in the flour mill. Okay.
So these were the whole wheat stones. So when the wheat would come in, and you had different orders for either fine ground whole wheat or medium ground or even just plain whole wheat or rolled wheat, it would come through these stones and it would grind it to the consistency of what you needed for your product. So these stones, as this pushed in close to it, they would loosen it up for the different type of grinding that you needed done. And it's all stones, so when the bag said stone ground whole wheat, they meant it. This is stone. All right, so this is what we call the 5-pound packing room. The 5-pound packer was in that corner, and as they packed the bags of flour, the 5-pound bags, they came along a little conveyor to a guy right here that would hold a paper bag, which we call a bale, and 10 of those would be pushed into that bag, and then it would get sealed up, and the guy would be over there on a palletizer, and he would palletize them, and then they'd go out to the warehouse. And back in 1976, Atherton Bean came to town and talked about building the new mill over here and the warehouse. So the far warehouse was 77 and the mill was probably 76 or 77 also.
The basement of the 1976 B mill, and it's actually 2 different mills that were going here. You had 3 line shafts that were the main mill, and then they added the rye, which is the 4th. They were all powered by motors in the back room. All the processes through the rolls came down to the basement here. There's either suction or blowers that would blow it back up to the 4th floor to continue the process.
The only way you could contact people throughout the whole mill is if you would get on the horn and you'd have a certain beep for certain people, whichever floor. Hey, change it to this or do that, you know.
So this mill, you could start from this control panel. You just turn the knob and a series of motors would start up and then the light would change color. When it was green, everything was running. You went to the next one and right down the line. If something happened during the process, the light would change color and you could see where to go to find where the problem was. So this mill, color coding in the pipes, all the blue were suction, and these are all pulling up out of the basement. All of these pipes are up. Anything like this, my day it was called fair yellow, now they painted it, but anything that's not blue was pressurized.
So this is the sifter floor. So the roll floor was down below, and as the sifter floor was running, it would get either sucked up and through these different pipes up here. So they would go to a destination that it needed to get to.
Okay, these are airlocks and dust collection. If you look around, there's cyclones and all kinds of stuff. What they did is they separated the product from the air, and then they go out and down into the sifters again. So this whole floor was equipment like that, just separating everything that went down from the basement up. So this is the 5th floor of the B mill. This area here is housing a lot of dust collection and they had a couple of different explosions in this area over the past 25 years. Basically, the whole floor is used for moving air and collecting the flour and dumping it into bins. This big fan is used to recirculate air through the whole building. They take the air from the filters and combine it with outside air to maintain a pressure and temperature in the mill, summer and winter. This big fan where all the bee mill flour came up to. If you look in the distance, you'll see cyclones back there. That's what dumped it into the bins. So if you open a hatch, you can physically look down into the bin. Yeah, this is all these pipes are transferring flour from the B mill over to the A mill for processing, either to bulk or wherever they need to go.
So from this station here, they would fill the bulk cars. The flour would be blown in from there. And the rest of these tracks would be, as we went along, the close track was the 5th track, 4th track, 3rd track. And as we filled them with flour sacks, as we hauled them in either with a hand truck or with conveyors, we would fill each car. And then after the car was full, we'd move to another car and fill that. So all these tracks were always full of cars. And once the bulk cars got filled, we would push them down, they would go to the end, and then we'd bring the next car in and fill that. So everything had its purpose. It's either bagged or bulk. Bulk went right to the cars. Always or trucks, depending on if it was free.
So sometimes it did not get bagged. It just went into the truck
So
or car.
maybe some big bakery out in New York needed the bagel flour, so that went right to a car, and then it got shipped, or a truck.
If you were gonna ship a carload of
Bulk.
flour, would it just go to the bakery in bulk?
Right to the bakery, because they were big bakeries.
Okay.
And they had dump stations just like we had, and you would dump the flour out of the bottom, and it would go into their pipes and right to their bakery.
If you were gonna ship
The elevator, all the wheat came in on the cars below. That's 95 feet to the top, and the legs go from the basement all the way up to those top windows above the Robin Hood sign. And then it go down through the elevator to be processed. This is, you look in the background, you'll see a leg in the distance. That leg is where all the processed bran and feed went out. And that had an explosion years ago, and it physically lifted the top of that off. The fire department came over, and I had to go up there with them. And that filter was brought in with a helicopter.
the blue one.
Yep. And that filter physically landed out there with a 2-bladed helicopter, brought it up to us piece by piece, and we put it together. This is a maintenance shop where everything got fixed, welded, fabricated, you name it. All happened down through here. We were responsible for doing all the equipment upkeep, all of the spouting that you see through the plant. Anything that had to do with just about anything in the plant, including electronics, electrical, it all was done in-house. Very little got sent out. Test panel we used to use. We had all the different voltages, all the different amperages. This was used for testing fuses, your long cartridge fuses. Just set it on there and the light will light up if it was good. If it didn't, you knew you had a bad fuse.
Hold on. There we go.
Okay, so this is where you bring up the old roll or bring the new rolls from the basement to replace in the roller mills. You bring it up on this hoist, you close the doors, and then you'd set it down on the carrier. The roll would be on end. They're about 900 pounds with 2 shafts on it, stand about this high.
Hold on.
So instead of having to go to each individual spot to oil on the line shafts, they put in these oilers and you could watch them drip and adjust them to continuously feed the Babbitt bearings that used to be down there. So much easier than going down in between all the belts. This is one of the 2 steam boilers they use for heat and for tempering wheat. This one was run by number 3 diesel or natural gas, depending on what was available at the time. If it really got cold, they'd kick us off. and we'd have to go to diesel fuel on this one. Had another one that they've already removed that was natural gas only, used for heating only.
And then
The process was you called the power plant and they had to start a generator just for the mill. And then you'd start the 300 and the 500. And then before you started the rest of the plant, they said, okay, we're good to go, because there was such a draw that they had to make sure the generator was stabilized. And then from there you just went. The process
It needed to shut down because it took so much to start it up again.
Okay.
So if you just keep running it all the time, everything would be fine.
got it. So when you had to turn it off,
That's when the problems came, and then if they kicked it back on the day we started it, there'd be chokes, there'd be flour chokes, there'd be trouble, and then we'd shut it down again because we had to. They hated to clog them all before we could ever start up again, you know. Yeah.
and is that why it says some places like don't hit with a certain mallet or something? Okay.
Because then somebody had to come and fix it.
They were done painting, I suppose, yeah. So the man lift constantly ran, all the way to the top floor, down to the bottom floor. As it was running, you would grab onto the handle. It's actually on the back side is where you would grab on. And if you were coming down, you would get off at the bottom here, and you'd be done. So whichever floor you wanted to go to, you would get off. And it constantly ran. And if you had a big problem, there was a problem, you could pull the rope, and that would shut the thing down.
So they had an advertising part that was way in the back where the gun shop is now. And we used to insert coupons for different dividends you could trade them in for right into the bag before it was sealed up. And then they could mail those in and get measuring cups or whatever. So they'd put malt in and they'd add it to the flour stream, which would go down to the conveyor directly below us to be mixed.